I want to see a decentralized network that does not look like a decentralized network from outside. Doesn't have those ugly words that you usually see. I think the stars just aligned perfectly when 80 protocol came out, and it's like we can actually build the social bits on protocol.
Hello, welcome to devtools-fm. This is a podcast about developer tools and the people who make them. I'm Andrew, and this is my co-host, Justin.
Hey, everyone. We're really excited to have the creators of Tangled.sh on with us. So Tangled is a really cool technology built on App Proto, Git repo. But we'll dive into that second. Before we do, we'd like to allow y'all a chance to introduce yourselves. So who wants to take it first?
Yes, but I'll go first. So, hey everyone, I'm Anirudh, and I'm originally from Bangalore, as is my brother Akshay, and I currently live in Finland, and I've been here for like 2 years now. I moved here for my previous employer, UpCloud, where I built their managed Kubernetes platform. I mean, my work history has largely been in like infrastructure and distributed systems, and I've worked at like a bunch of startups prior to this. So this is sort of my first time doing something on my own in a way. And I'm Akshay. I'm, like Anirudh says, his brother, and I'm originally from Bangalore, India, and then I moved to London a couple of years ago. And I'm a compiler engineer by trade. All my sort of past experience has been in sort of static analysis and sort of dev tools largely. And currently at my day job, I'm building a transpiler to convert COBOL to Java. But it's a bit of a pivot to building a GitHub clone. But yeah, it's been quite a journey.
That sounds like a wild job. Also, I mean, got more power to you. Like all the COBOL in the world that like needs to be converted to something that like people actually know. Like that's incredible.
For sure. It's not fun, but it's definitely something that it's inevitable, I think. Yeah.
Cool. So let's get into talking about Tangled. It seems like a pretty interesting project. There is a long line of social coding on the internet. It started way before GitHub with, I think, SourceForge. It might go back even further than that. But can you tell us a little bit more about Tangled and how it kind of takes this next step in our source control journey we've been going through?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think Tangled sort of originated as an idea that came about when we saw the 80 protocol ecosystem sort of grow legs and start taking off a little, circa end of 2024 or thereabouts. And yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to build like a code forge. I think prior to Tangled, I built something called Legit, which is a Git web front end. So if you're self-hosting Git repositories on your own server, you can sort of toss this on top of that and people can navigate that. It's purely read only. But this sort of, I've always wanted to like, take that one step further and build like an actually decentralized system of some sort for code collaboration. And I think the stars sort of just aligned perfectly when 80 protocol came out, and it's like, oh wait, we can actually build the social bits on protocol, and the Git repository hosting can sort of be its own thing. Of course, we'll get into that, but yeah, that's sort of the fresh take on it that we're sort of bringing about. Yeah, Akshay, you want to elaborate? Yeah, for sure. Even I used to host Cgit because I just wanted to have all my repositories on my own hardware, right? So I used to run Cgit from a Raspberry Pi at home, and then store all my repositories there, all my university projects and things like that. Well, firstly, it's really cool to do that, but also, you get all this data ownership. As a downside, like people can't really see your project, they don't discover it. And oftentimes I would just mirror it on GitHub. So, people would actually open issues and open pull requests even. And I think the standard model is to sort of email a patch. But in my entire sort of 7 years of self-hosting Cgit, I think I got one email. And then when I tried to apply that patch, it didn't apply. So that doesn't really work, right? So yeah. We do. I mean, email is decentralized. Like that is the ideal model that we want. We want people to own their data, but still be able to collaborate. But in practice, I don't really feel like feel like it's caught on. And that's something we want to fix with Tangled. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the UX of email is like something that you really can't change much, right? There's like very limited things that you can do. So hearing you talk about this is interesting. So it's like you've both done some self-hosting, and it seems like a lot of the traditional platforms that we have today are more geared towards centralized hosting. You can self-host them, but it's like they're not easy to self-host and or take a lot of money. So like you can self-host GitHub Enterprise if you want to pay them a ton of money. I think GitLab is very self-hostable. I don't know like all the details of that. So how did your experience in self-hosting and even mirroring to GitHub and like the combination of those elements, how did that shape into like how you thought about building Tangle?
Yeah, well, that's actually an excellent question because the existing sort of forges that you can self-host, like Gitty or Forjo or Gogs or whatever there's a variety of them. They all tend to sort of gear towards being an entire GitHub that you host on your infrastructure, which brings the whole UI, the whole CI system, and the Git repositories themselves. So, and the whole identity, account management, everything. So the whole 9 yards. It sort of becomes this really beefy piece of kit that you're now forced to set up and host your repositories on, which works in practice. I mean, in theory, but in practice, if someone wants to contribute, they now have to create a new account on your little Forjo instance or whatever, and then send you a patch. So that friction to sort of leave GitHub and use this is just way too high. Like, why would I want to create a new account on your little server, like a no-name server? So that sort of really informed how we wanted to design Tangled, where we wanted to ensure that you could still host repositories on your own servers, but at the same time, we wanted to solve for that identity problem. We don't want to have to create new accounts on everyone else's servers to just send them a patch, right? Like, especially if it's just a tiny drive-by change. And I think fundamentally that's where AD protocol shines, and it solves this problem by default with the decentralized ID, or DIDs as they're called. So in effect, we're now able to like maintain that central identity, which is what you get when you sign up on Blue Sky for now. But in theory, you can set up a DID without that, and you can then you can then host your repositories on your own servers using Tangle's knots. Of course, we'll get into that, but and then that central identity sort of solves the whole thing.
I just want to say this sort of the focus on lightweightness, right? Being able to participate in the network does not require like much resources. Especially you just have to have a hard disk with some repositories on it, and then you run this really lightweight thing, and all of a sudden you get the ability to contribute to other repositories, like get contributions to your own repositories. I don't feel like there exists software like this right now today.
Yeah. So GitHub is a platform. I love it. I've used it for a very long time, but I've used it in like tandem with Twitter. Like, I'll open up a pull request, and instead of like trying to bug the maintainer on GitHub, I'll just go to Twitter, bug them there. It usually gets my pull request across the line. So with Tangled, how do you see like the social coding landscape changing now that like that essentially isn't a problem anymore? I don't have to go find this developer on another network. I know where they are.
I mean, yeah, that's a good question. It's interesting that you go message the dev on Twitter.
I get them myself too.
No, for sure. I think there's a sort of that's kind of valid that we have this. You sort of have the same identity, right? On your repositories as well as your sort of like on the social side of things. Personally, when I was sort of starting off with Tangle, I personally don't use social media as much. I just sort of tend to use one thing. My internet presence is just, either my website or like I tend to sort of focus on one thing at a time. So I don't imagine myself sort of being that person where you would open a pull request and then message me in Blue Sky. But I think this sort of the ability to have the shared identity opens us up to a lot of other things. I think a lot of people want to sort of see a unified notification system where, like you get pull requests, you get notifications of Blue Sky. We want to somehow they want to see this sort of just have like an inbox for everything, right? Which is what email used to be. And I guess we could sort of see something like that happen for AT Proto, right? Just have an AT Proto inbox where all the other, like the AT Proto ecosystem just sort of pulls messages into that. Yeah, I mean, I can see this. There's sort of being like a deep integration, between Tangled and other AT protocol apps.
Yeah.
And which is enabled by the fact that you just have one identity.
Yeah.
Which is what, like all these integrations with email are able to do that because email is one identity that you own, right? Yeah, for sure. Do you have something to say on this on?
No, I think you put that very well. With the AT protocol inbox is it's a pretty neat idea, and I think fundamentally we're in the super early doors of what that ecosystem is going to shape up like. So I think it's a bit early to say what that's going to look like. It's just we're like hardly a year into this whole thing. So it remains to be seen. But yeah, I think that's some early thoughts for
that could be the next big thing, like one inbox for all of AT Proto.
I think so. I think you're onto something there.
Yeah, it kind of combines the ideas of email, RSS, identity, like all of that in one. It seems interesting for sure.
Yeah, I actually didn't think about it. Maybe there's like this one app queue where you say, I want to listen to blog posts from this guy, pull request from this guy, post from this guy, and then it just all collects into your AT Proto
No,
inbox.
I actually quite like that. I think as AT protocol, sort of evolves and there's a lot more, there's a lot more that you can subscribe to on the fire hose. We can sort of build out like this hyper customizable app view, which lets you subscribe to, whatever you see fit. Like you want to see Blue Sky posts from just Akshay, and you want to see, I don't know, what are they calling like those TikTok skylight, video feeds from just like a couple of skylight creators and just put all of them into one. I think that would be pretty sick. I don't think anyone's thought of that yet.
Yeah. I've heard rumblings of this idea from people on the Blue Sky team where it's like, do we think of App Proto as like a protocol or a browser? Because it's like, you could build an App Protocol browser. And like, I could even imagine like, I remember about.me, and it was a website where you made a personal web page and you filled in all your information.
Yeah.
On App Proto, you could have an automatic about me. You just go, hey, log in with my PDS. It's there.
Yeah.
Like, you're done.
Yeah, 100%.
Thanks to WorkOS for sponsoring today's episode of devtools.fm. So picture this. You're on a Zoom call with a potential customer. The demo went great. They're interested. And then comes the famous ask. Do you support SAML or SSO, some other enterprise feature? And you pause and you say, yeah, it's on our backlog. We can prioritize that for you. And then you just have to get to work. But if you don't have time to build that, that's where WorkOS comes in. WorkOS gives you everything you need to make your app enterprise ready. So think SSO, SEIM, audit logs, fine-grained roles, even domain verification and credential storage. Everything with modern, well-designed APIs and SDKs that you won't hate using. Their admin portal handles onboarding flows. They have the Vault feature to help secure secrets. And the docs are really good. They're actual modern developer docs. They're clear, example-driven, written for humans. It's delightful. Everything is modular, so you only need to use what you need. And it scales with you as customers start asking for more functionality. So the next time someone asks you, do you support SAML or some other enterprise feature? You can just say yes and mean it. And if that sounds good to you, head over to workos.com to learn more. So speaking of App Proto and building on this topic, it's interesting. So like Git is already decentralized in a meaningful way. And App Proto is decentralized in a meaningful way. So what is do you marry the two in a way that is intuitive?
I mean, I can talk about a bit about this. I mean, we've thought long and hard about, the fact that we are dealing with two protocols. There's like the Git, backing for the repositories, which is like hyper optimized for handling diffs and like flowering of repositories and like compressing, sort of snapshotting repositories as the commits grow. And then there's AD protocol, which is also building this Merkle DAG, and then for like verifiable records, people can like authenticated records, right? And then we have these two things, and we want to marry them. Surely there's like a unified interface for this, right? Surely we can sort of store repositories, using the AD protocol Merkle DAG, or the other way, store AD protocol records using the Git trees. But truthfully, I mean, they've sort of, I think Git has evolved a lot in the sort of 25 years that it's been around. And it's a behemoth. It's quite hard to even like wrap my head around the model. And it's also very extremely focused on specifically evolving code bases, like adding text-based diffs and stuff. So like we thought a lot about this, and we realized we should just keep it separate. Like, we have these PDF things, and then we have Git repository links. And I think maybe if we sort of sat around and then as a research project over years and years, we could build a way for Git repositories, or rather to build a version control system on AD protocol, and then we could maybe share, the underlying advantages that AD protocol brings. Or alternatively, build a PDS which uses Git as a backing, right?
Yeah.
Backing for storage. I think we could do, but I think the very simplest solution is to just keep them separate. Let Git repositories be Git repositories, let PDS repositories be PDS repositories, and we'll sort of advance this. Currently, the sort of like deep integration does not exist. Repositories aren't exactly stored on the PDS. We do create a record for repositories, but it's not like what you expect from AD protocol is that you can verify, like you just have the contents of a record and it's like inherently verifiable. But currently that's not possible because the Git repository is separate from the AD protocol record for the repository. But we have some ideas to sort of like connect the dots here. Yeah.
Yeah. For now, I can probably expand on that. So I think for now, all the social bits, like your pull requests, your issues, your comments on all of those, in fact, the pull request diffs, the patch diffs, and of course the repository metadata, stars, follows, all of that is on protocol. So all of that is written directly to your user's PDS, and so we're using AD protocol through and through for that. And then that's where we sort of introduced when Akshay said, let's keep Git repositories separate, then we sort of had to think of, how do we keep it separate? And if it's separate, how can we sort of arrive at that vision of, that, you can self-host it and still have others contribute. And that's where we came up with the idea of knots, like KNOTS, knots. And knots are like these super lightweight, lightweight Git repository like servers in a way, and all they do is they're completely headless. There's no UI. It's just like a REST API that serves your Git repository, and it's then picked up by us, the app view, and we then display it. So this effectively allows for like a network of these federated knots to run, and there's a unified view into this this federated set of Git repositories that can live anywhere and everywhere. And of course, the forking and pull requests, etc., all work across knots, facilitated by AD protocol and the app view.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of chatter about like apps using AD protocol. So everything that uses AD protocol eventually looks like social media, right? So what if you're building things which are not entirely social media? Like how do you, and in which case you just use AD protocol for the social bits and you just enable sort of social bits of your application with AD protocol, but then don't sort of try to shoehorn AD protocol to the other things, right? And I think it's worked quite well for us. Also because, like Git is huge. There's a lot of tooling. There's a lot of things that's been built for Git in the last so many years. We don't want to deconstruct that and then, like switch do like a PDS-based version control system. And also like being like Git is fundamentally multiple people contributing on this one repository, but PDS is sort of like personal data stores, right? You'd want to currently only one user can edit a record on a PDS, or rather on their PDS repository. And I fundamentally, I mean, maybe there's a solution here where we sort of have a deep integration. It's just not something that we're sort of looking at right now.
Something that we've talked to other folks building on the app proto about is, so the app proto has this idea of a lexicon, which is like a custom data structure for your app that's built on app proto. And Blue Sky has their own lexicon. So if you write data in the Blue Sky lexicon, it'll show up on Blue Sky. If you write data in a different lexicon, you have to have an app view for it to display. There's this interesting like tension between when do you make something show up in the Blue Sky lexicon versus like when do you use your own custom lexicon, and sort of as y'all have been thinking about like social, one of the things that popped in my head that I've never thought about before is like notification systems are always super hard to make. And it's interesting that you have this like option to sort of like hijack Blue Sky in a way to like be sort of a notification system. It's like, oh, if you wanted to, it's like you could have a Blue Sky post every time you created a new Tangled repo or whatever. That'd be like a very simple thing for y'all to do under the hood. It'd be like, it's almost like a choose your own, like how you want to be notified or like how public you want it to be. Like what are the network effects and where does it impact?
That's true. No, I think we even had this conversation earlier, like even on Blue Sky actually, about people wanting to either retain their Blue Sky follows or us on Tangled building an entirely new follow graph. Like, because we could, of course, we could have just, had your Blue Sky follows automatically imported on Tangled, but then we felt like that would probably be not a great fit because again, Tangled is not looking to be a, Blue Sky compatible, or like, it's not a social app, right? It's a social enabled app. And I think that sort of distinction is where, where we sort of figured that, okay, you know what, we should probably build our own follow graph where you follow people who you want to see, their code activity for, not, you don't follow someone on Blue Sky and, have the exact same people on Tangled because that doesn't make sense. It's not a one-to-one, right? So, so that's sort of, another interesting thing about AD protocol, right? Because I think after a point, you'll only see a certain number of these social apps because you can't have, there's an inherent limitation to how many social apps people are going to start using. Sure, you have TikTok, you have Instagram, now you have Twitter, all shaped in AD protocol, versions of them. But that's about it. Like, what else are you going to make? Everything else has to sort of build its own little space. And I think, fundamentally AD protocol enables this, and that's great. But I think that mix and match is also pretty cool. But ramble.
A lot of chatter about like whether new social apps built on AD Pro should share network graphs or not.
Yeah.
And I mean, like Anirudh says, maybe in your view, maybe like, your Tangled follows are, like you follow different people entirely on Tangled versus different people on Blue Sky. I personally, I feel like the engineers I follow on Blue Sky are the same people I want to follow on Tangled. I want to see the same code. So I don't know that there's a good answer to this. I know that Spark, the TikTok clone, they're sort of having an option where you can import the same follows on Blue Sky.
Yeah.
And then, when you start having options like this, like import from the other network and then share to this other network, I feel like users might tend to get confused. So I don't know that there's a clear answer here. I personally want to keep my 100 or so Blue Sky follows on Tangled also.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. I personally wouldn't do that, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm in that camp also. Like, I follow a lot of people on Blue Sky that I don't care what they code about. Like, they're an infrastructure, and I'm very much not an infrastructure.
There you go.
So one interesting question I like to talk about when we're talking about proto apps is something that Rudy, the creator of Black Sky, likes to bring up also is we can't just be a skeuomorphism of the past. Like, sure, you can make a GitHub shaped thing, but does that make it a novel idea? So like, what are the like app proto specific bits, or maybe even like some planned features that you have that kind of like make it unique to the protocol rather than just like a clone of an existing app?
Yeah, this is an excellent one. Actually, you probably want to talk about like the did web. Uh,
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, we've had a lot of ideas. So fundamentally, like at the very core, we want to be a federated social coding platform, and I think this is a really good step. Firstly, for a lot of social apps, like they may be clones of existing apps, but the fact that they're federated instantly makes me want to use them, or at least want to support them, right? And I think that's a good, I think that's a good sort of like denominator for people creating apps. Like it's okay to clone stuff. Like is the fact that you can sort of respect AD Proto and instantly build out this decentralized app. I think there's good value in that. But secondly, we want to also, our sort of differentiator is the fact that like individuals can host repositories on these servers called nodes, right? It's something we want to sort of enable here. And I don't think this has sort of been possible in the past is if you host your own GitLab or something like that, it's not really like discoverable to the public. You can maybe tell people about it, but it's not really, there's nowhere you can sort of like announce to the world. And this is something we want to sort of pin down with Tangled is that the app view is where we will pick up all these knots which are sort of coming up, and then we will sort of broadcast it to the world. So discoverability sort of stops being an issue, despite the fact that, you're sort of self-hosting something. I don't know if that answers your question quite closely, but what we're trying to do is currently this is not implemented. It's just in my head, but we want knots to, like when people sort of start self-hosting a knot, and we want to assign let's say when they initialize a knot, we want to sort of assign a did web identity to it and then sort of make it behave like a small, like a bit like a PDS. So it's sort of able to broadcast itself to the world. So even self-hosters get the visibility they want despite being in the sort of decentralized network.
And this also sort of desanctifies the app view in a way, and it sort of makes us truly decentralized. So what this allows, because currently knots have to register themselves with us, and only then are we able to like showcase their repositories. But in this model, once we do get around to building it, app views sort of become peers almost. So anyone can spin up an app view, and then the knots that advertise themselves will get picked up by the app view, and will start getting served. So I think this sort of puts more control in the users and knots, and app views are almost just like one of us, just peers on the network, which I think would make the whole thing even more 80 protated in a way.
This episode is sponsored by Mailtrap, an email platform that developers love. Go for high deliverability, industry-best analytics, and live 24/7 support. You can get 20% off for all plans with the promo code DevTools. Check out the details in the description below. There's an interesting challenge here too with like visibility. So, I mean, everything right now on App Proto and Blue Sky is public. They have DMs, which are kind of like a separate system, but like everything else is public. So it's like when you think about, shared Git repositories, whether they're public, whether they're private, what metadata you share, how are y'all going through that balance and thinking about like, can someone participate in the network in some limited way without, fully sharing all their data? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, we could. So the thing is, right now, the protocol is just fundamentally open. There is no private data in AD protocol, which it doesn't directly limit us. I mean, we could technically have users hosting knots and just not broadcast that to the AD proto, and we don't write records for that and have it fully private, only visible to them. We just feel like that would be a bit of a half-assed implementation. We don't want to go down that route because it doesn't feel like the right way to do it. So I think for now, our thoughts are let's just see how AD protocol private data and private repositories come about, and we'll then build it then. So for now, all repositories are public, and that's just how it's going to be.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of like I think this is sort of putting off a lot of people from starting on AD protocol, right? Like if you wanted to build an AD protocol Instagram today, I know that Instagram sort of having your profile visible only to friends is probably like a big thing on Instagram, and you can't do that today on AD protocol. Um, and maybe the best bet for sort of people building these kind of apps is to, like I mean, and we have this sort of, we have the ability to do this, which is to just like wait till the developers of AD protocol do it, Um, uh, and I think that's good. That's a good. I mean, we could implement private repositories, like it would just be off protocol, like how Blue Sky's DMs are implemented.
Yeah.
But do we want to do that? I mean, maybe. I don't feel like there's been that much interest in private repositories, amongst
No.
other things. And I think we have something in our favor, which is, the fact that open source inherently is, it's such a big thing in programming that people are okay with like broadcasting their code bases. As opposed to, something like DMs where you absolutely want to start with private first. Yeah.
So I see you guys have been posting about pull requests a lot lately. You've been taking interesting approaches to creating pull requests. So how do pull requests work on Tangled? And like, what are those like kind of unique approaches that you're trying to test out?
Yeah, I mean, no, that's an excellent question. I think we both will have a lot to say.
This is my favorite question.
Yeah, okay, well, yeah, actually, Akshay should probably just start with this and I will probably finish. Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So firstly, I believe, like, as we keep coming back to this, firstly, I believe that the email-based approach to contribution was really good. It's just the fact that email itself was not, lending itself to this ease of use. I think somehow a lot of people just don't like, using Git and then copying their patch and putting it on an email client and hitting send. Um, so we wanted to use that as a sort of foundation, right? So what you do, so we initially started off pull requests as a way of, you literally type git diff, you make some changes in your Git repository, you type git diff, you get some output, you copy and paste that on the website, and then you click on new pull request, and that's your contribution. It's very easy. All you need is an AD protocol account and the ability to write code. And then you just write git diff and then you're off to the races. And it works really well. The fact that it's exactly like email, right? Instead of, sending an email, you just send a pull request on this app view, and people can, review it. Then you resubmit it. It works really well. As opposed to the GitHub model where you have to firstly create an account on GitHub, then you have to fork the repository, then you have to, clone the fork repository so that, your Git remote is configured correctly, make your change, and then go and click on new pull request. So that's sort of what we started out firstly, quickly be able to submit drive-by pull requests like this. And I feel like this is sort of covering a lot of cases that we see in code contribution. Like people want to edit one word in your README, they can do that really easily. The next thing we wanted to do is to sort of have the sort of like traditional GitHub flow for people who are sort of collaborators and projects. You want to be able to do like, you want to be able to push a branch, then you want to be able to open a pull request through that. And this is what we've done. So we've sort of enabled the ability to open pull requests from one branch to another. The sort of key difference between this model and GitHub is the fact that we have this sort of round-based system. So in GitHub, what you do is every pull request is mutable. So you open a pull request, somebody puts a review on it, and then you append commits, right? You just modify your existing pull request, and then they modify the pull request by adding more comments on it. And then at the end of, like 3-4 rounds of reviews, like let's say, a third person comes and looks at the pull request, they have no idea what's going on. Somebody has force pushed to their branch. All the sort of like commit times are completely off. It's impossible to attach a review comment to a change. It's hard to tell what change was addresses what review comment. And our round-based pull request solves this because a pull request is immutable. So when you click on submit, it starts a round, and you can't edit that round again. That is sort of set in stone. And when a reviewer leaves comments, you have to submit a new round. So you start off with round 0, and let's say a reviewer leaves comments, and then your next submission is going to be round 1. So it's sort of like incrementally you can build on your patch. And what this enables you to do is to sort of see round 0 got 2 comments, and let's see, was it addressed in round 1? Was it not addressed in round 1? Okay, let's see if it was addressed in round 2. So it's sort of easy to tell the chronology of how a pull request is evolving through the round-based request model. And this is what you get in email, because you can't edit an older email. You can only send an email. You get another email back saying, fix this. And then you send another email fixing those things. And that's sort of what we wanted to encapsulate with a better UI, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. And the neat thing here is even you don't append commits at all. Like you are essentially resubmitting the same set of commits in every round, which allows you to sort of, as an external or as a reviewer, you can sort of see, how the pull request is evolving, how that, commits are evolving. And this works perfectly in both like the GitHub model where people are used to sort of appending commits. Sure, you can append a commit and push, but then you can still see that whole history every round. And you can sort of see that whole patch every round. Whereas if you're also coming from that Garrett or or even like the email style model where you send patches and you sort of reauthor the same commits, and reviews are done per commit, it works perfectly in that case as well, because now your rounds are just going to be that same, say, 3 commits over and over again, addressing reauthored and rebased, so that they're addressing review comments. And in fact, last night we shipped Akshay mostly took this one, but we sort of shipped the interdifs feature, which allows you to sort of see the actual change between the 2 rounds. So say you have a mega patch in round 0, and then you have some comments on that, and then you submit that in round 1 again with the comments addressed. As a reviewer, you can then hit the interdiff button to just simply see, the lines that were changed or the files that were changed, and the rest of it are, completely untouched. So you don't have to look at the whole patch again. You can just look at, what changed between round 0 and round 1. So yeah.
This works really well if, especially from the reviewer perspective, especially if you've already seen all the code from round 1, and you know that the expected sort of update is like a 1-word change. You click on interdiff and you expect to see just that 1 word. Immediately, if the user has changed anything else, it's just visible exactly like that. Yeah. Whereas with GitHub, you're either like diving for the exact commit, or the user decided to force push, so now you have no idea what they've done.
And in fact, the underlying, I guess, the infrastructure of how these whole pull requests is designed fundamentally uses the same tooling that is used for sending emails, or like emails with patches, which is the Git format patch tool. So that allows us to sort of, generate that sort of patch per round, and it's also protected against force pushes. So you force push your branch, and then you resubmit. We will still generate the exact same patch as is and then in the new round that gets submitted. So yeah, it works perfectly.
Yeah, it seems like an interesting system. I'll admit I've snuck some code in after a review, and a system like that would prevent it, and that's probably on the better side.
No, I tend to do this quite a lot. I'll just sort of drive by a few more changes, especially right after the reviewer hits approve. That's my sort of time to sort of sneak in a couple of commits before they hit merge.
Yeah, my 2 strategies are either that or submit such a big pull request that it crashes the GitHub diff UI, and then they just can't review it. So rubber stamp. Hope you guys fix that one.
Yeah, this is awesome though, because I force push a lot. I use a tool that rewrites history, and I try to keep the commits very clean and tell the story about what I'm doing or whatever. And this has always been a problem. It's a problem when people are collaborating with you too, because you can stop their work or whatever. But anyway, the immutable commits I found amazing.
Yeah, and I also want to mention, I mean, this is not something we have sort of worked on fully, but all of this is sort of building up towards the ability for people to leave comments on individual commits. So especially if you like sort of reauthoring and writing your commit history to be as clean as possible, what if reviewers could leave comments on individual commits? So then you could submit your sort of, let's say you submit 3 commits, and the reviewer wants you to address a change that you made in commit number 1. They can then leave a comment specifically on one commit, and then you can go and reauthor that. And this is what we're building towards. This is what we want to enable with our review model.
One question, this isn't something that I feel like y'all would necessarily be, I don't know if you're in a good place to solve this or not, but sort of as Andrew alluded to, one of the challenges is that we get with pull requests is that they can be really big and really hard to review. And I like the interdiff functionality that you're talking about, because that can like narrow the delta between changes.
Yeah.
One question to be interesting is like, can you interdiff arbitrary versions, or is it only like a ladder? Because it's like sometimes in this case of you're changing one commit and then changing another commit, if you can only interdiff individual steps, that might not actually give you a full story. But the other thing is like, how do you think about like breaking down work? It feels like that probably happens outside of not or entangled, but it is a thing that's always on my mind, is like, how do I encourage people to do smaller pull requests, and how do we make it more ergonomic for them? And like, or if we got a big pull request, how do I make it easier to review? I don't know. They're hard problems.
I think a lot of these questions, I think they're quite closely related to the tools we use. Do people make big pull requests because the tools that they use don't allow them to sort of easily break down their work? Is that why they make big pull requests, or do they make big pull requests because they couldn't care less about review burden for the reviewer? And maybe I think there's a bit of both, but I think the tooling for making like more atomic pull requests that are easy to review, that simply, I mean, I feel like there doesn't exist something that's really good with that. And this is something that I'm not sure if you're familiar with Jujitsu, the new sort of BCF's system, which is sort of compatible with Git, is that they sort of allow this flow where you can build these atomic pull requests without impeding your velocity, right?
Yeah.
And we want, like, it sort of goes hand in hand. So maybe Git does not let you build big pull requests sort of like multiple changes quite easily, but let's say Jujitsu does. And then the other component is whether your CodeForge really enables multiple pull requests to be reviewed simultaneously. And that's something we want to do. We're building sort of close integrations with these tools like Jujitsu, so you can then stack your pull requests, make it easy to review, and without blocking your velocity, without blocking you from building, like continuing build.
Yeah. I think fundamentally the GitHub model, the GitHub's, shall I say, archaic model, which they came out with, I don't know, whenever they launched, and hasn't really changed. It sort of lends itself to these, Giga PRs, right? Like, people, you have this one I mean, where I used to work with, I think the longest we've had this one pull request open was for a year with like 400 comments or something like that. And then eventually it was unmergeable because, the branches had deviated so much that it was almost its own little repository. But, that's sort of the branch model results in such, such outcomes. And I think, and the fact that GitHub doesn't, make it very easy. There's so much friction in opening a pull request as is that, users are disincentivized from creating these smaller atomic ones, because it's so much effort to have to go and make a new branch for each change, because that's how the PR model works. It requires you to create a new Git branch per change. And that's where, these new age of tooling like Jujitsu, and I think Git Butler is also solving for this, but on top of Git, that's what they aim to solve. They're trying to make it as easy as possible that you don't have to, break out these changes into into separate branches, but you can, still make these atomic PRs. But fundamentally, I think GitHub's UI itself lends itself very poorly to, reviewing atomic PRs. because as a reviewer, there's no simple way to like look at multiple PRs in conjunction, and you're now forced to like click through different links, and you have different tabs of pull requests. So it's just a sad state of affairs overall. So yeah, that's exactly what we're aiming to solve for.
Yeah, that's exciting. We actually had Scott Cachon from the Git Butler team on, and from the original GitHub team. And another tool, the one that I'm using a lot these days, is Retcon. We had the creator of that tool on as well, and it does a lot of like rewriting, making it easy to like rebase or whatever. And yeah, Jujitsu, I'm super excited about. I hope we get some interesting tools. But I think to your point, it's like traditional like VCS systems don't like work well with these things. It's like still like a monolith pull request model.
Yes.
So it'll be really exciting if y'all get like stacked PRs, because
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of startups in that area that are like trying to like solve this problem well. So it's exciting to hear like another take on it too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it just has to be supported first party as a first class citizen on the platform where everyone's collaborating on, because tacking it on top of GitHub or even like building like extra, like a third party tool on top of that, like Graphite is doing, is going to work, but it's, you're still fundamentally limited by what GitHub lets you do. So being able to do that, on top of your actual platform itself, like what we're aiming to do at Tangled, I think, yeah, that's the key. That's paramount.
I got one more question. I think it would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit more about GitHub. The thing with GitHub is their massive reach. Like you can't deny the like discoverability of their platform. And y'all talked about like, we hosted our own things and like mirror it on GitHub. And probably in this world where I to like host my own, not like one of the first things I'd want to do is like, how do I mirror this to GitHub as well? Because like, I want this ecosystem to survive, but also like if people are on GitHub, which like most people, not most, but a lot of people are, then it's like, it's still good to have that presence. Even if you like want to disable pull requests and all the other things and just like, here, interact with our system in this way. Yeah. So have you thought any about that, or like what do you want that story to be, or do you kind of want to discourage that behavior? Like what is your sort of like thoughts around that area?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would, I think, yeah, we have some thoughts for sure. I think we might even differ on what we think, but personally, I think it's unfortunate, but I think we may have to, build some sort of ability to mirror repositories, at least as Tangle is still in its infancy. Just so we can, drive more adoption, right? So it's, we have to, but I think how we go about doing that is something, I don't know. There are a couple of ways to do it. One of them would be to just make it like an 80 protocol driven, wherein a user we have some sort of an import tool or that lets them create an 80 protocol record for like the sh-tangle.repo or whatever, and then we pick that up, and then we're able to then populate the repository somehow. That's one way to go about it. But yeah, Akshay, do you have some thoughts on this?
I mean, right off the bat, I very much want to discourage using GitHub. I know that's not viable for everybody, but if I personally used to always mirror my sort of C Git repositories on GitHub, just for sort of pull requests and contributions and issues and stuff. But if I had the choice, I would say no. But for sure. So the thing we have on our side is the fact that Git repositories are quite easy to mirror. Fundamentally, they're quite easy to. So let's say you had an Instagram account and you wanted to sort of leave Instagram and go somewhere else. It's quite hard to bring all of that, bring your posts and your stories and what else Instagram has to your new platform. But Git repositories quite easy to move around, quite easy to mirror. So there's not much platform stickiness there, so to speak. What people are going to miss are things like existing open pull requests. And things like open issues, and now with GitHub discussions, existing discussions, if you have all of that. And there are ways to sort of import this, but then there's the question of, like, will the users on GitHub continue to sort of contribute or sort of continue like a discussion here, or continue on an issue here. And I guess that's the sort of difficult question, right? Do we like mirror this discussion with GitHub, or do we like what do we do? And I think I'd sort of expect. I think fundamentally the code is the easy one to copy around.
Yeah.
The rest is quite platform. So like you're not going to have your GitHub stars untangled, unfortunately.
Yeah. I do think there's an opportunity for you to define that user experience, though. So, I mean, GitHub is, for better or worse, just like this massive ecosystem, and you can sort of say, okay, if you want to sync a Tangled repo to GitHub, you can just like do this, and we'll set it up automatically for you. And then maybe you can say, oh, we'll automatically turn off PRs and issues for you, and we'll like add an extra link in the README, an extra thing in the description, and like set up all the information that people need to know about like how to contribute to this thing, where they don't really have to think about it. They just like press a button and it shows up. And, then that could just be an extra marketing channel for Tangled as well. It's like, that's also important because it's like another in. I think it is something to do thoughtfully, but I feel like definitely I've thought about times of like, I would like to be able to move a little bit more away from GitHub, but there are things like, people come on GitHub to like do a search for like a library. And it's like, I would still like to be showing up for that library search, even if like this isn't the sort of primary mechanism of interaction that I'd like to encourage. So be really interested to see what y'all come up with there.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think sort of reducing the friction here. I mean, I still haven't moved my repositories from GitHub to Tangled. And it's because it's like, it's hard. You have to go to each repository, clone it to local, and then push it to Tangled. But what if I just had a button to, and then one shot, I just have everything working.
Yeah.
That'll be really cool for sure. And now I have personal motive to do this also.
Yeah, that's true. We actually had someone ask us about possibly if they wrote a script to just clone all their repositories onto their Knot server, and the Knot was then able to sync it back to the app view, and then we have everything populated. That's currently not possible to do because Knots aren't able to write to your PDS, which means we cannot sync it this way. But of course, with the whole did web of Knots idea that we thought of, like this would be enabled, so that would be super seamless. So you could just like we could even like give you a first party script that you could just run on your server, and it clones all your GitHub repositories, and everything is populated, and Bob's your uncle. But we're still a little ways away from doing that.
Cool. So wrapping up here, we always like to ask a future-facing question for you guys. I want to ask, what is your ideal future for decentralized coding? What does it look like? What's the dream, the pie in the sky?
Ooh, yeah. I mean, the way we see it, we want this to be like this sort of, federation of, Git repositories, and even like smaller communities running their own little Knot servers and collaborating, and, having it such that it's still like open and, viable for anyone else from outside of that to be able to send a patch in. And, that's sort of how we see it. And, I don't know.
I think for me, the first thing I noticed when I joined Blue Sky is the sort of seamlessness, right? So there's all these users on different PDSs, but still I'm able to sort of see all replies and see all of these posts and be able to search. And the fact that it's decentralized is not really visible. And that's something I want for Tangle to sort of get to that stage where, if there's an error setting up a repository here, it does not leave some broken state there. You're able to sort of like search globally across all knots. You have, like code navigation.
Yeah.
You have all of these like cool features that you'd sort of expect from being able to centralize things, but underlying, like under the hood, everything is decentralized. That's what I want to see. Like, I want to see a decentralized network that does not look like a decentralized network from outside.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't have those ugly words that you usually see.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, it's a lofty goal. I wish you guys luck on your endeavor to factor the code out of GitHub. Big challenge there. But thanks for coming on and talking about it. This was a fun conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
This is
Yeah.
wonderful.
This is awesome. And also, like, props on the pull request model. I think this is gonna inspire a lot of people, I hope, and I'm excited to work more with it. So thank you for coming on.
Hell yeah. Yeah, thanks. Cool.